Welcome back to the Well Dwellers podcast. If you don't know who I am, my name's Eric Freiberger, and I'm excited as a week ago, there was a group of about 8 of us that got to hang out down at the Calgary Main Public Library in a little private room and have a little party, if you will, with some food. And Bruce Callow was there joining me and the Well crew as we explored AI music creation and the ways it gave a new way for those with disabilities to express some of the life challenges, some of the life passions, and give voice to where those of us that aren't as articulate or able to vocalize, maybe verbally disabled, can also possibly find new expressions through AI music. So we're going to hear lots from Bruce today about AI music, and I'll incorporate a little bit of some of the music we created a week ago that you'll get to hear, and we'll hear about all the adventures that he's been on in his globe-trotting workshops and sharing this amazing technology. So Bruce Callow, welcome to the Well.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. Great to see you again after, this last week.
Yeah. No, it's been good. And, we got snowed in the last few days. I'm so glad we're able to connect here online and have the conversation today too. I know last week you were awesome to talk with, so I'm excited for today's conversation.
Thanks. Yeah, we didn't get snow. The weather was okay last Saturday. So yeah, I'm glad we did it before.
For sure. Well, if you'd like to, for our listeners, can you maybe talk a bit about yourself and where you're from and some of the work you do and some of the great passions you have?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Calgary, born in Edmonton, grew up in Calgary, and then studied at the UC for a bit. My interests were sort of in the social area. Then I started to get acquainted with Central America and, basically global issues. We were still in the time of the Cold War back in the late 1980s, fairly tumultuous period. Well, I guess compared to today, I don't know if you could say it's any better or worse, but you had, issues happening, the Cold War sort of coming to an end. China was going through, its issues as well in the late 1980s. I remember university students from there dealing with all of that. And then Central America was kind of in the epicenter of the Cold War with Nicaragua. And that's what drew me down to Central America originally, and doing volunteer work and then understanding refugee issues that were happening in Canada. And Canada did its part definitely to assist people. And Canada's always been like that. And I ended up going with the UFC summer school down in Central America in '88. And that was my first visit to the region. And then on a later trip, I ended up meeting a special lady, and we got married. And I settled down there around 1992, and not having planned to settle, it just sort of extended into 35 years or whatever it is now. I lost count.
Right. Wow. So you've been down there for a while then. So
yeah, I've been working mostly in, the education sector. And then I did a stint for about 10 years at the UK Embassy, public affairs and projects and stuff like that, with a focus on Nicaragua, which was always my passion. So I was able to dive back into that. And nowadays, I left the embassy back in 2013, came back to Calgary, did a year helping out at the Calgary Drop-In Center, and then went back to Costa Rica and been working freelance ever since. And so, I always try to find time for new activities and exploring new technologies and music. I didn't mention too much about my musical past, but that comes into play in what we're doing.
For sure, I'm sure. Actually, I'd be interested in hearing. Tell me more about your musical past. What's your history here with music?
Well, I was in bands that were not super successful, but they achieved a relative level of success in the late 80s and early 90s. And we would be like playing, opening for campuses, opening for fairly prominent bands at the time. And we were at the time, it was the scene where Jan Arden emerged. from that. So there was a sort of an interesting energy around the early 90s. And we actually had the similar management for a period of time that Jan had, but Jan sprung from that scene. So we always like remember that with fondness, because like, yeah, one of our own made it to the top, right?
Cool. And so then you play instruments and sing, or what?
Yeah, yeah, it was lead vocals and rhythm guitar basically, and my background was in rock and even punk, and then my real favorite, I guess, of all was post punk, and so I'm still kind of stuck in the new wave for some reason. I don't know why, but that seems to find its way into the workshops too occasionally, to getting people bouncing and having a good time, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bit. But I've always thought music was an important thing for expression and for social action. I've organized, like in the last 3 years, 4 or 5 benefit concerts for Ukraine, and we've done, yeah, we've done our best and managed to get more people interested. And this wasn't necessarily the amount of money you made in the concert, but like who was in the concert, and if they've got a good checkbook, then you can
Hmm.
send everyone home early and okay, you can go now. We got that guy showed up and he's got donating $20,000, right? So yeah, luckily we were able to meet some wonderful people and with good hearts, right?
Yeah. I didn't see any checkbooks at our gathering last week.
Damn.
Well, I have a bit of a history with music myself too, where as a kid I was playing piano a little bit, and I actually got into some of the classic piano music and stuff. Found it very meditative and encouraging. And my mother also played acoustic guitar in the church worship band, and was very talented. I remember that I was not to touch the guitar. Do not touch the guitar. But there's lots of great memories of sitting, in the living room while she practiced, and we'd be singing some of the songs that she was learning or practicing. And she liked some of that Jan Arden stuff too, actually.
Mm.
But and some of the she was a Bette Midler fan, but yeah,
Nice.
but yeah, and of course campfire. We were always camping, and she'd bring the guitar out around the campfire. So music is something that definitely becomes ingrained and deep in the soul, and ways to find meaning in the words that we share. And I think that that's kind of what made me excited when Ty introduced me to you, and the idea of us coming together to see how those with disabilities can use music to express what's going on in their souls and what's going on in their hearts when they can't find the words, or even struggling to speak. So I'd be curious to ask you what started you in this journey with AI and music. As a musician yourself, it's intriguing that you are drawn to this AI creation and what it might offer the world.
Yeah, it was almost a year ago. Like it was early mid-December, and my son introduced me to this Suno thing. He'd known about it for 6 to 8 months, and he showed it to me. And I said, "Why didn't you tell me about this before?" He goes, "I thought you already knew." Because he was slightly dismissive about it. This is not something real musicians do. It's just a weird technology that's, they've stolen all of the music from the musical library of humanity. And now like there's that side of it. And
Mm.
some people sort of like, it's kind of cheesy, it's not real and whatever. But yeah, I'm glad he shared it with me despite whatever reservations he had, because I certainly didn't have any about exploring it anyway. And I certainly have reservations about the issues, about the people's songs who've been sort of, yeah, regenerated in some form. And I understand and I respect those legitimate concerns about that, right? But if you have a motive that's beyond commercialization and trying to copy and take credit for other people's work, because that's not what we're doing. I saw this as a way of play for one, a fun way to a creative sketchboard where you could bounce ideas, no matter how silly, and get instant feedback. Um, writing a rock opera in, one day was my first project because I thought this thing would be off the internet in just a few months because there were lawsuits against it. And I was just pouring it out because I figured it was going to be gone, right?
Mm,
And so that wasn't the case. And then on December 24th, went to my mother-in-law's house for Christmas dinner. And I gently asked her if she would tell a story, anything she wanted. And she told a story about climbing a fruit tree and picking fruit trees when she was a kid. And we put it to music with the help of
mm,
my son, because I was still getting used to it. And she was amazed. And we had a really fun moment. And then a little light bulb turned on and said, well, we got to try this out on a bigger scale here. And then we
mm.
did it in an old folks home in Santa Ana. It turned into a 4-part series over 4 weeks. And then the couple of governmental institutions took note, and a little bit of media coverage, and yeah, just slowly and gently, it's kind of gained momentum, and I'm just enjoying it a lot.
Wow. So you've been taking these workshops across what I've understood. You've taken it to other countries.
Yeah, well, I'm based in Costa Rica, so I've been doing them there a lot in my own
Mm.
region. And then Japan, I was there on a family trip, so I was able to get access to a seniors residence there, which was kind of remarkable considering all the cultural differences. And they're very careful people about uh, um, everything they do. They're very protocol oriented. So yeah, getting in there was outstanding. And we did a workshop that just blew the socks off the staff, and the residents there too were
Mm.
so happy about it. Some of them were in their late 90s, from Nagasaki, recounting stories from their childhood. And it was very powerful
Wow.
stuff. Powerful, yeah.
Yeah. So when they did their musical creations, were they doing it in English or in Japanese or their native tongues?
In Japanese, yeah, I had two helpers who were, a teacher and another special helper that gently interviewed the people, got their stories, and it showed how the excellence of, well, how AI like ChatGPT can manage in any language, and Suno can also manage in any language, and the pronunciation, the accent is 100% perfect, which is,
Wow.
it's just, and I said, it's okay, right? Like, it sounds okay. And everyone's like, perfect. And I'm like, good. Yes, I have to take your word for that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think, that music can do that too, where it doesn't even matter if you understand some of the language. The way you experience music allows emotions and connection to still happen. I've had that kind of experience before in some of my work with missional encounters where people will be praying in different languages or singing in different languages, and yet there's an emotional connection and a spiritual connection that still takes place. So it's pretty powerful to see that Suno and AI is actually opening up those doors too for elderly communities.
Absolutely. And then the ones we did in Calgary back in April, May this year were at the Calgary Immigrant Aid downtown. And they told me it's going to be for ESL classes for elderly people who, for newcomers to Calgary. And we had people from Afghanistan, India, and Cuba, Ukraine. There were like 7 or 8 different cultures, languages represented, and they had them all at tables. Table had a facilitator, and they just said that's what we were doing. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea how this is going to work, but the facilitators were brilliant, and each table came up with a song. Imagine all that cross cultural stuff happening. And
Mm.
then at the end of the workshop, we played a lot with it, playing the songs back in their own native tongues. And that was like the encore, like literally, like they were just vibrating. And people that looked kind of conservative and shy at the beginning were literally like on their feet, like bouncing. It was hilariously fun and amazing. Yeah.
That's incredible. What's what are maybe some of the impacts that you may have heard or learned about after they've experienced their song creation? Have you heard stories how they've continued on or the way that they feel about it afterwards?
Yeah, I heard the songs would be shared with family members and creating whole new levels of connection between them and their families, opening new understanding and conversations. And then the Calgary Immigrant Aid, they did a social, like a disco night or disco afternoon using the soundtrack. I guess they put on an event and the people just got to chill out and socialize and hear their songs back.
Wow. Yeah. I remember a week ago when David created that song using the Serenity Prayer and how powerful that was for us and in the hearing of it, but also that he was going to share it with his son afterwards was pretty amazing.
Walking through the rain, trying to find the meaning in the joy and in the pain. Every step uncertain, every heartbeat loud, but I'm learning how to stand here, learning to be proud. When the world feels heavy and the night feels long, I whisper to the silence, trying to stay strong. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I've carried broken molds.
I'd love to hear, I don't know if you've heard, but I'd love to hear what his son thought of that song. And I'm hoping he held on to it and maybe went on to share it with others.
Yeah, I spoke with David a couple of times after, but I didn't hear specifically about that. But David was taking his first steps to get into Suno, just like you've done, and try to figure it out, what works and how it works. But that moment, when we did that collaborative song based on the Serenity Prayer, I think, a lot of people in the group were inputting ideas and stuff. So it was very special. And, as a person, like sort of the facilitator, those are the moments that you're looking for, you're hoping for. You don't always get them. And you just feel it. Like it got so quiet. And so you just, when you're living a moment, and I think we all kind of experienced that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Can you think of any other songs that were kind of created similarly that had a particular powerful moment?
Well, we did one yesterday. I was at Wentworth Manor yesterday afternoon, actually. And it was a neat group of people. We had a couple of people from England. And there were, people who grew up on farms in Saskatchewan. And a really neat collection of ideas. But at the end, we created a group song. And the lady from Dorset, who was sitting actually right next to me, her song was about growing up in Dorset, which is right across from France. And she just remembers as a little kid that it was this beautiful beach, but it was all fenced off because of the war, right? But there was one specific place where they could play. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be great. And it was. But then she led the activity where we all sort of pitched in a sentence or two. And she said, her line was so English. She goes, this was one of the most interesting activities I've ever experienced. And I've experienced many interesting activities. I think I got it right. Or afternoons or something. It was just so British, right? And I'm like happily typing down. And then the next person would follow. And they created this ripping, brilliant song, like an anthem or something. Spent some extra time on that one. It was amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. Do you share these all on your Suno account or?
Not really. No, I don't really do anything. I'm a very like private person on Suno. I'm not
Oh,
trying to be sort of the next Suno sensation. And plus for these people, I let them use it as their own, at their own, whatever, how they want to do it. Right.
for sure.
So I'm happy to do it. Maybe, who knows, I'll have to restart rethinking that. But, I just actually did the playlist for yesterday's session this morning. And you know how that works when we were working together on our playlists. It's always fun for me the day after, give yourself an emotional break and then look at it more from you know, the production side, right?
Yeah, for sure. I've done lots of that myself. Yeah, I want to touch a bit too, because I know in a lot of my other conversations around AI, there is concern about the way it impacts human character, human dignity. As your son was expressing concerns there towards those who are involved in the music field. Professionally and creatively and so on. I was reading this morning in a book and it talked about in the past, we used to have a tongue-in-cheek rule, take pictures or make music, or it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now we live in a day where even if it didn't happen, there will be pictures, there will be music. It is nearly impossible for the average individual to discern between the real photo and the doctored AI photo. So I wondered if you might be able to touch a bit on some of the dangers to AI being used as a tool for expression by elderly or disabled, or anyone for that matter. Are there dangers there?
I mean, I think it's when we do these workshops, we need to be sensitive to the power of music, right? Especially when we're hearing songs that are like, you're literally taking your idea and then turning it into a professional production that sounds identical or better than anything you'd hear on the radio or TV or whatever that would previously cost, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And it can have a powerful effect, and hopefully in the positive way. But I've seen a number of occasions where a person's brought to tears because it's triggering or they're remembering an extremely powerful moment. And if they just like read the text, they would just be like, but they're hearing it with the music. So I trust the people that are inviting me to do this, that they know they're people like that they know who are best suited to this. Because potentially this could be like really sad. Like say someone who had come from a war zone or a refugee from fleeing their country, and then you hear a song that's a beautiful song, but all of a sudden it triggers. That was the song I heard when someone found out was killed or whatever. Yeah. So I think we got to be aware of that for sure. From that point of view, I'm not sure if that touched on more the technology side of things, or did you have another area that you wanted to more explore on that, Eric?
No, I think that's a very good point, is to recognize that we need to be emotionally prepared in creating certain music about our stories and lives, that it opens up areas that can not only bring healing, but potentially wounding too. So I think that's a good point. But I would love to hear too about some of the technology side of it too, I guess. I don't, um, I've taken a shine to Suno in getting to write some things and have music added to it because I can't play the music anymore. And as I joked with a friend the other day, I don't think you want to hear me sing this, but still, I think it's important to be honoring and respectful to those who are actually taking the painstaking steps of music creation, writing the actual musical notes, taking the steps to articulate their voice for certain songs, the creative craft behind it, as well as the legalities of it. And I just wondered what your thoughts were on how it can be respectful to that community and that creation level, but also recognizing that AI has a certain power to it that shouldn't necessarily just be, as you thought might happen originally, thrown away with a sense of cheesiness or lack of creativity.
Yeah, I think like young people introduced to these type of tools, they should equally be learning to play an instrument, like
Mhm.
totally. We're gonna have a real big problem in the future if everyone just thinks that they can just plug into this type of thing, and it would be a tragedy. So it should be like 80% or 90% real instrument, real work, and then use this as you know as a sort of an icing on the cake if you're able to actually do that, right? There are people who are physically not able to play an instrument for different reasons. So this is a wonderful and fantastic liberating tool. But overall, like in society, I think it's really, really important that we focus too on the organic, the analog, as well as this. I mean, I'm 60 years old, so I've already experienced a lot of things and seen how the changes in technology to do with music and the whole music industry. It's been one big upheaval after another, since the internet, basically, right? And so now we're seeing an equally big revolution in terms of how music is going to be created, how it's going to be perceived, and probably soultized as well, right? So we're just at the beginning of something that's hard to really know, like where we're heading, right?
Yeah, I think I heard a couple weeks ago about how a song had climbed up on the country music charts and was in like the top 10 of country music. And it wasn't until it was in the top 10 that they realized, oh, this is actually an AI generated song. So now they're what do we do with this? Do we recognize it within a top 10 chart? Where does the money go?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it. It'll be interesting to see how this unfolds, right? And I think like any new technology, any new sort of fad, um, things will it'll be exciting for a while and kind of reach like a sort of a accommodation. Um, it'll come to some sort of point of understanding of what's important, how much of this do we want, and but that those are questions I'll leave to others because I have one specific targeted idea to use it, and that's we got to do that together last Saturday, and that was great.
Yeah. Well, I guess I want to ask too what your hopes are in sharing these workshops with those communities as you have shared it in multiple countries. What's the big hope in sharing it with them?
Yeah, I mean, how many times do we have to watch movies like Patch Adams or there are many things there's a lot of science that proves the power of music, right? And it's always seems to be kind of like oh yeah, we should do more of that, or it's always seems to be like what a great idea, he's doing that over here, but why not roll it out like like a uniform program like with government money and just like do it properly instead of just the piecemeal effect. And then you will see so many millions of happy people, their memories brought back, their health restored. Oh man, sometimes I feel happy when we do these things, but at the same time, I feel a sense of frustration that we couldn't do it, 100,000 times more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it talks about the power of memory too. I remember being at a conference where Leonard Sweet was talking about how generations and generations ago, everything had to be stored up here. Everything had to be in the brain. And admittingly, our brains were probably a little more powerful then. But at the same time, now our memories and our learning has been shared with multiple platforms, if you will, with relationships with other people. They have different memories of events you shared together, but also with technology. He says, I can't do anything anymore without checking in my laptop or on my phone as I do research and try to learn things and remember what I'm doing with certain research and work. And music, I think, is also a way to do that too. When you think about how we find dignity and identity with elderly who are encountering dementia.
Mhm. Mhm.
A lot of people say, well, they won't remember anymore. No, it's not about them specifically, one person remembering. It's about them sharing those memories with others. And if we can capture some of that through a musical platform that communicates not just the story itself, but perhaps some of the emotion and the spirit in that experience too,
Yeah.
it really can, I think, would enhance and enrich the human experience and the communities.
What a great tool to have. It's speaking across generations. Like my father, he'd research family history. Our family going back, that's 30 years or more. And it would seem very dry, a bunch of wills and farmers and fishermen. And yeah, okay, great. We're happy that they existed and all that. But it wasn't, even the exciting stories seemed boring somehow, pushed together, and this didn't have any life. But now we put it into songs, and all of a sudden, for me, I actually feel like I know about these people, and I had to force myself to do a little bit of reading, and then hearing the songs, it's helped. It's helped a lot. So it can work in multiple directions. Take someone who's like bored about history and turn them into like really passionate about it, right?
Yeah. Or in the disabled community, I was thinking actually about Leland's song from a week ago.
You need a beard, and maybe me, crashing like thunder on your birthday beat. What's that sound? What time is it? The lights go down. Who's that coming through the smoke? Oh, oh, oh. Who's that ready to provoke? Oh, oh, oh. Ho, ho, ho. What about hockey? Hockey. Whoa, 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 whoa. Ho, ho, ho. Skates hit the ice and everything's electric. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. Turn up the night, let the speakers bleed. Rhythm like a slap shot of fire and speed. Hear the crowd roar. You ask one question, are you ready for more?
I missed when he originally created it because I had to step out for a few minutes. But I was listening to the song. I actually have listened to it several times now, being home. Listening to the song and the way it expanded and went deeper into his character and identity using what I heard him say that day. His ho ho ho's and the beard and stuff. And I'm listening to the song. I thought, wow, this is Leland entirely. And it gave so much depth to, and my respect to Lee for the incredible creative way he sees the world and the passion he has for it. That was one of the powerful songs I thought from a week ago too. So
No, it was incredible. And Ty does such a great job, helping him and encouraging him all the time. And he's able to help him articulate his ideas. Because I think Ty has cracked the code, obviously, with Leyland. But if you saw Leyland for the first time, you wouldn't know what he was really saying or communicating. But you could really sense he was communicating very clearly. And then luckily we had the Suno app on the big screen there. And there he was. He was like, and he could connect. He could totally connect what was going on in the meeting. And you could I watched his behavior. He became so calm, like calmed down. He was just like another guy in the workshop. He's not, as sort of active and shouting or whatever. There was something happening. And imagine doing that like more often. Um, it's so cool to see people that traditionally you wouldn't imagine in a situation like that. And I think we did something pretty neat.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm having a flashback to a Star Trek moment. I think you're going to like this story. I'm remembering that episode when Data was with his brother Lore. And remember, I think it was Lore's brain had become corrupted. And so Data had plugged in from his brain into Lore's. Do you remember this episode at all? I don't know.
I think so. I think I have an idea about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was through that wired connection that they were able to bring Lore back into a communicative state, although maybe not the greatest positive state, but
Lore is lore, right?
exactly. But just to think from the artificial to now we actually see it happening between Ty and his son Lee in a very positive, organic, spiritual, and rich expression, and that was brought on through using an AI tool. So that's pretty cool.
It was amazing. And Ty, the cherry on the cake for me, for my little present, it was my Christmas present from Ty. He brings in the Data action figure and its full package for my present that day. I thought that was a very appropriate gift.
That's going to make it into our video stream here. I guarantee I'm going to put that out.
That's literally like the first picture I sent back home to family. It's like, yeah, look what I got today. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm a nerd.
Well, if you haven't encountered it already, Ty and I have done a couple conversations on Star Trek on the podcast. So, yeah. So, what are some ways after all these workshops you've led, do you think there's ways that the AI Suno music program could be improved out of curiosity?
I think they keep updating it regularly. To be honest, Eric, I am not 100% up to date with all their features. But what I do see is that the trend now is that, working musicians with home studios and stuff, or bands jamming and recording and recreating music are now just using it as a supplementary tool. And so that's the trend. That's what they seem to be promoting. I mean, they're mastering techniques. There's like 4 of them. We talked about it in our workshop, how they're evolving very quickly. Who knows? There could be ways to interface more with people with special needs, right? Maybe there's other ways of doing it. Voice activated controls. So maybe blind people are, there's a number of things that could be done to help at the interface with people with special needs. That would be an interesting thing to explore.
Maybe our listeners might have a few ideas they can drop in the comments as to their thoughts. So you are preparing to return home, I understand, to much warmer weather.
Just on Monday there. Yeah.
What are you working on now? Or is there anything new that you've got on the horizons for what you're working towards?
Yeah, well, it's a thing on the back burner, a reboot of the film project that I was involved in back in like 2009 to 2012 period. It was called Odyssey 2050. And it was a climate change multimedia project that I did when I was working at the UK Embassy. And it had a really positive impact on just generating conversations and sort of awareness and activism amongst young people on the issue of climate change. It was like a movie, but it had like documentary elements that people would send us based on their ideas of what they were doing to, help protect the world and build a better future. And the whole issue of climate change is where we're in the middle of suffering. Well, not the middle, but we're seeing how serious this is. But at the same time, many of the powers that be are just ignoring it and saying, well, that's not really a thing. So I thought it would be a good idea to try to bring back that movement. So yeah, I got back in touch with a number of people. David Swan was one of them, actually, back in the day. He was one of our sort of Alberta team members. And we've got this like a think tank in the works. And the old film teams, they're creating new footage. And we'll be doing a new version of the film shortly. So that's going to percolate for a while, Eric. Probably a good 6 months before I have something more solid. I'm just getting the team back together, like in the Blues Brothers, when we're on a mission from God. Remember when they got the band back together?
All right, that's cool. Yeah. Well, before we close, I just want to ask: is there any way our listeners can learn more about you, or get to see more of the work you're doing through online, or getting hold of you some way if you wish? Or how can our listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, if it's okay, if that could be through you. I have a pretty limited social media presence these days, but I'm happy to talk with anyone who'd like to, do a workshop or just, talk about Suno or any of the things that we've discussed. Happy to help. But yeah, if anyone wants to maybe get in touch through you, and if you can pass them on, that would be great.
Awesome. Bruce, thanks so much for joining me here at the Well Dwellers podcast and sharing a bit of our experiences in AI music last week, as well as some of the things you've learned across the globe. I really appreciate you sharing today.
No, thanks so much to you, Eric. And last week was phenomenal. For me, it was a whole new territory. It brought about a lot of rethinking about just the basics of what life is, what's getting around life for people, and so many things that, people take for granted on a day-to-day basis that, disabled people, they have to deal with a lot of stuff. I think we could all be a lot more, show a lot more empathy and not sympathy, but just basic common sense about helping your brother and just being a good neighbor. And, it could be any of us, right? So let's just be aware of stuff like that. You helped me become more aware, so thank you for that.
Awesome, thank you.